Hello, great people. Efforts to resolve the acrimony between Senator Natasha Akpabio and Senate President Akpabio takes a new dimension as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu sets up a presidential investigative panel. But the Senate President Akpabio is resisting the move. He is not in tune with the investigation, so he has opted out, citing undue interference in the affairs of the legislature, and is also citing lack of trust in the panel that was set up by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Is there a looming battle between the executive and the legislature? And if any, does Akpabio has the capacity to withstand the political might of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? On this episode of Politics with your show plug Dr. Omosoladeji, we'll be taking this clip from two perspectives. We'll be looking at the aspect of political education as regards separation of power, principle of checks and balances between the executive and the legislature. Then we'll also be looking at the art of politics in this particular issue, and also we'll be bringing in some legal perspective and dimensions into it. So if you are the type that loves some form of educative video, this is the video for you as regards the separation of power and principle of checks and balances. But before I dive into it, let me bring you up to speed. You will recall that Senator Natasha Akpabio accused the Senate President of sexual harassment, and the senator was suspended for alleged misconduct on the floor of the Nigerian Senate. And after that, there's been a lot of back and forth between the Senator Natasha Akpabio and Senate President Akpabio. And now there is a panel set up by the president, but the Senate President Akpabio is resisting, is not cooperating with that particular panel. So now, the president set up that particular panel, and it involves Vice President Kashim Shettima as the head of the panel, and it has members such as the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, and one representative from Natasha Akpabio's camp, and one representative also from Akpabio's camp. Looking at the setup of that panel, I think it is very logical. The necessary people are well represented therein. But then Akpabio is opting out because he reportedly cited undue interference and lack of confidence for his withdrawal. Now, let us look at that of undue interference. This relates to intergovernmental relation. Now, I want to kind of like break some things down for you, but for you to understand, let me first of all tell you about intergovernmental relations in a democracy. First, democracy believes, so, and some of you that have watched my video when I used to do live, maybe you must have heard me say this thing, that democracy believes that knowledge is not domiciled in an arm of government. That is why each arm of government have something that checkmates them that comes from another arm of government. For instance, to checkmate the works of the executive, to checkmate Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there is the Senate and the House of Representatives, called the National Assembly, or if you like, you can call them the legislature. And to checkmate the judiciary, you will recall that even if they want to appoint judges, if the judiciary want to appoint judges, the executive is involved. You cannot appoint judges without the role of the executive. In fact, it is sometimes the executive that will nominate, then the NJC will screen. Now, for the legislature, you will see that even if the legislature passes a bill, they have to send it to the executive for ratification. So you can see that there are some kind of like checks and balances in such a way that you cannot operate totally free or on your own. And if there's any issue between the executive and the legislature, they will take it to the judiciary if there's a dispute between them, just like the case of the River State issue, that the state governors of the PDP approach the Supreme Court and interpret the Constitution for us. Now, the big question is that in a democracy like Nigeria, can the executive, can they checkmate the legislature? That is the big question, because what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing is trying to checkmate the legislature, that there is an issue, and he is coming in from another arm of government to kind of like act on that particular issue that is causing a bit of acrimony and public reaction. But does President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have such power? First, I need to take it from a broad perspective, which is, can the executive checkmate the legislature? The answer is yes and no. The answer is yes and no, in the sense that the executive can checkmate the legislature in the area of finance. For instance, the legislature, the Nigerian Senate have to approach President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that, oh, we want to spend this money. This is the money that we need. The president has to agree with them and instruct the Minister of Finance to release those funds to them. But if the president does not agree with the Senate, then there can be some kind of like issue. That itself is some form of checkmating or the other. Can the executive also checkmate the legislature? Yes and no. But yes, in the sense that even if the Senate pass a bill, they need to send it to the executive, to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So the Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his team will go and check that particular bill and see that everything is intact. That itself is some form of checkmating. That you, the Senate, you, the House of Rep, have you done the right thing? Same also, the legislature usually checkmate the executive because it is only two people that are elected in the executive, which is the president and the vice president. Every other person are appointed, and the constitution believes that all the people in the legislature are elected. So their brain is kind of like it's kind of like important into checkmating the affairs of the executive. Now, how can the executive not checkmate the legislature in this case of Senator Natasha Akpabio and Senate President Godswill Akpabio? The executive cannot checkmate the legislature, and the big question is, can the executive supervise the legislature on ethics and misconduct? Because this issue now on the part of the Senate president, if he is guilty, it is a misconduct. The suspension of Senator Natasha Akpabio is based on misconduct on the floor of the Senate. Sexual harassment is also a misconduct. So can the executive checkmate the legislature when it comes to misconduct? Well, the answer apparently is no, in the sense that the legislature should has mechanisms to be able to kind of like operate by itself. That's why there's a Senate Ethics and Privilege Committee. And if the Senate Ethics and Privilege Committee cannot resolve it, that is why there is the judiciary. So the executive cannot checkmate the legislature when it comes to matter of ethics or misconduct. But when it comes to the money that the Senate want to spend, the executive can intervene in one form or the other. When it comes to the bill that will be passed, the executive can intervene, will make input in one way or the other. When it comes to appropriation, the budget, the executive can kind of like intervene, make input in one way or the other. But when it comes to ethics and misconduct, the executive have no such powers. So by implication, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is acting ultra vires, which is beyond his power. And I will come back to the act or to the art of politics in all that. Now, there is a legal perspective to it, which I promised you in my introductory remark, in the sense that the case is already in court, and if you look at it, what are they doing in court? It is investigation. So the judiciary is more of an investigative panel in all this, because Natasha will have to tender the evidence, and everything that happened will have to be narrated before the judge, and the judge will pronounce a judgment. So you can see the trial as some form of investigation or the other. So if the judiciary is already on it, and you, the president, want to now come in to say you want to investigate, the big question is, what are you investigating? And that brings us to the art of politics. Is there a political dimension to all this? Is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu trying to sack Godswill Akpabio, despite the fact that he has no such powers? Is he tired of the Akpabio-led presidency? Well, what I can say is that it is more of maybe than maybe not, in the sense that the Senate president may have fallen out of line with some crucial people in the Tinubu presidency. That's one. Another thing is that the Tinubu presidency may feel embarrassed by, the daily drama that is coming out from the acrimony between the Senate president and the Senate president and Senator Natasha Akpabio. And you will recall that recently there's one Professor Mbeki that came up with another drama that, Senator Natasha was lying and all that. So it's like a daily drama that is unending. Now, one thing that I can say is that if the president, assuming but not considering that he's trying to kind of like remove Akpabio, that's trying to intervene, well, you made Bola Ahmed Tinubu a lord unto himself. So I won't sympathize with the Senate president, Godswill Akpabio, because he made Bola Ahmed Tinubu a lord unto himself, because the legislature, the Senate, and the House of Representatives is to checkmate the executive so that they won't act ultra vires, so that they won't disobey the law and they would approach the rule of law. But in this case, you can see that the Senate and the House of Representatives, the legislature, both chambers, have been like a lame dog. So what I can say is that the lion cub, the baby of a lion that you are feeding live animals is ready to feast on you, in the sense that the baby of a lion that you are feeding live animal, you are throwing goat, you are throwing chicken, and that baby is enjoying it. Now that cub has become a full-grown lion, and now there's no food again. That cub is ready to now feast on you. What do I mean by that? The president have been acting in some manners that it would have been good for the legislator to check him. You didn't check him. He has. And what are the live animals here? I'm just using it as an illustration. I hope you understand what I'm saying. The live animals here is the case of Rivers State. The president acted the way he pleased in the case of Rivers State. He unilaterally removed first subsidy. You didn't checkmate him. He removed the subsidy on electricity. You guys didn't checkmate him. He floats the naira. You guys didn't checkmate him. So the president, bought private jet, Escalade. He's been living his life. He's been kind of like enjoying himself with little or no proper scrutiny in terms of loans that we are incurring as well. So the president has been kind of like enjoying himself, and now the president haven't been influential in even installing you, and you have been playing the political board. Now, if the president is not satisfied with you, what makes you think that the president will not think that he can remove you? If he can successfully remove fuel subsidy, the other subsidies, if he can effectively remove Siminalayi Fubara, the governor of Rivers State, then who are you for the president not to think that he can remove you? So is there a politics behind it? Is the president trying to remove Akpabio through the institution of a presidential investigative panel? And that's why I said the days ahead would be very interesting. But what I can say is that the Senate President Godswill Akpabio has been very helpful to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I'm not too much of a big fan of Akpabio. I don't hate him, I don't like him. But Akpabio has been very cooperative to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So it is only reciprocal for Bola Ahmed Tinubu to kind of like help him as well, in the sense that Akpabio has been very helpful, he has been very cooperative. So if he now has a case with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, whether right or wrong, it is expected that the spirit of the esprit de corps spirit will come in, and you will back him as well. It's a kind of like scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of a thing. Well, the Akpabio issue is an embarrassment, but it is not a significant embarrassment like that of the drug case of the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So you can see that nobody is a saint among the two of them. But may the best happen to Nigeria in all of this. It's been an interesting time with you on this episode of Politics. Subscribe, turn on your notification button, catch up with my past videos. See you in my next video. I love you all sincerely.